Everyone knows that feeling, wanting to experience more stories, but struggling to find the time. That's where Audible changes everything. With over 1 million audiobooks and Audible originals, there's a story waiting to spark anyone's imagination. Take The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, the gripping psychological thriller that's keeping listeners on the edge of their seats. Imagine unraveling its mysteries during your morning commute, or losing yourself in its twists and turns while doing household chores. That's the magic of Audible. It transforms daily routines into opportunities for thrilling discoveries. The best part? Members get access to thousands of included titles, with new content added regularly. From bestsellers to hidden gems, every genre imaginable is at their fingertips. And with one easy-to-use app, switching between favorites or discovering new passions has never been simpler. There's more to imagine when you listen. Start a free 30-day Audible trial and get your first audiobook free at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my guest, Steph Jagger, a local author who brings us her latest book, Everything Left to Remember: My Mother, Our Memories, and a Journey Through the Rocky Mountains. This book is wisdom, comfort, coach, and love story. Whether our mothers are still here with us or, as is the case for Steph and for myself, our mothers have left this world, there's still so much for us to learn and to grow with and from. It's an inner journey, and yet it's also this outer journey with our larger mother, our Mother Earth. I highly recommend reading this book, but also let's meet Steph and gain some insights for today. Steph Jagger, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be in conversation with you.
Well, likewise, I'm very excited about this as well. This new book, Everything Left to Remember: My Mother. Wow, it's so emotional. Our memories and a journey through the Rocky Mountains. And, it's a beautiful book. And I think emotions, when we think about our mothers, because I've lost my mother. You have done that as well. And entwined in that, of course, is something around the word memories, right? And thinking about dementia and Alzheimer's, which is all wrapped up in this book. And that's why I think it's such an amazing book, Steph. And I'm so grateful to you for having written it and shared your experiences with us. So I think, it gives us an opportunity to begin to look at our own, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's such an interesting thing that you have, really started with, which is, we have this just kind of depth of emotion around loss, around memory, around our mothers, around what we were able to receive from them, around what we weren't able to receive from them, or what they weren't able to offer to us. And I just think it's an extraordinarily complex relationship. And I really felt compelled to, as best as I knew how, even within the loss, even in the excruciating kind of path of Alzheimer's and dementia, I really wanted to write a love story. Like, I don't think I knew that as when I set out, but I feel that's what's at the heartbeat of this book. So I'm glad to be starting the conversation with that.
And calling it a love story, absolutely. And love is not like this many splendored thing that has no, depths to it, which can be painful and hurt can exist. So I think, it's that complicated ball of stories and life that's all mixed together here, and the emotions play into it because, and I've grown to feel that it's just okay to have these emotions and to let them be, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I talk, I'm so glad that you said that, because when I talk about love, like, it's really easy for us to just think of love as this ooey gooey romantic thing, right? That maybe we get, maybe we don't. We cross our fingers for sometimes. And I actually think inside of many different relationships, whether that's siblings, whether that's aunts and uncles, whether that's our partner or our best friend or our mother or even ourselves, I think when I talk about writing a love story, I'm talking about writing about, what is the largest container? What is the largest kind of capacity that I have for the totality of this to come through. I'm really writing about, two people being able to invite the totality of themselves to the table. So do I have the largeness? Do I have the capacity to invite the whole story to come through? And of course, the whole story includes our emotional body, which has anger in it, which has disappointment in it, which has love and honoring and grace within it. So that's really what I mean by a love story is, am I able to tell the totality of the truth that I see that exists between these two people, between myself and my mother in the instance of this story?
And yes, so that we realize that all of that is present, and that when some of these, what we might label as negative emotions, that's all part of it, and something, they're like signal posts and something to learn from and grow from.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, the definition of emotions that I work with is emotions, energy in motion in my body. Emotions start as a sensation inside of our bodies, and then we have terminology, we have names and labels for what those sensations are. And some of them are big and wildly uncomfortable for us to feel, but I think if we're able to sit with the idea that this is simply energy in motion and allow it to move and give it language, like it doesn't have to stay stuck or stagnant or, kind of end up stuffed somewhere inside of us.
And so it feels as though this is some of the foundation or the basis from which you are a coach and a mentor. Am I on the right path with that thought?
You are absolutely on the right path. I mean, I think as a little one that didn't necessarily feel like there was a real depth and breadth of access to the kind of emotional landscape, I had a lot of demonstrative kind of physical love inside of my household growing up, which provided me with an immense ability to tap into, physical safety, which is critical for us. And, there wasn't a depth necessarily of emotional life. There's a lot of positivity, the positive kind of emotions. But there was a lot of them missing, and I think I really craved that. And starting from when I was, in my teens, probably went on a journey to search for the language for that. And that, I think, led me down two different avenues. It certainly led me toward writing. What is the language that I can use to describe what I feel in my body? And simultaneously, led me to coaching and mentorship to be able to guide people, walk alongside people, teach people in some instances those same tools to use in their lives.
And thus, so just a little tangent off, talking specifically about everything left to remember, but in doing that kind of work, identifying it, the writing, this is something that is also your work, coaching, but coaching writers and having writers' workshops, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you're catching me in the midst of one glorious workshop of that nature, and that's exactly it. I love to be able to move this to a translation on the page. So I oftentimes work with writers individually or in groups to kind of find the middle ground between, journaling, which is typically a mental activity, like how am I going to release the mental chatter in my mind, and I'm going to put that into my journal, which is extraordinarily helpful. And then there's the craft and editorial side of writing, which is how do I polish something and decide if it's going to be an essay or a manuscript or a poem. And there's a middle state, which is can be fleeting and liquid and wild in many ways. And I think it involves our emotional body and our energetic body. And it's actually, this is where it's related to the book. I think my mother was attempting to teach me this without language. And I think that's my next kind of lineage-based quest, is to move those teachings into language-based teachings. So that typically is a description of what we're doing at these retreats, is finding kind of the largeness of our own love stories with ourselves or with the world around us.
And the love story in Everything Left to Remember is really such a beautiful, emotional, at times painful, of course, story, but it just, again, I feel it's giving us that opportunity to think about it in context of our own lives, and very specifically around this disease of dementia and Alzheimer's, because we see it happening more, and it's frightening. But also, I feel that you're giving us this lens, this opportunity to find a peace within it, and an acceptance and a love.
Yeah, I mean, we've been through a collective experience over the last handful of years. I think we can all probably agree upon the fact that life, generally speaking, is frightening. All of the complexity, all of the uncertainty, and certainly this particular experience, and when families have experiences of having a loved one diagnosed with a disease like Alzheimer's or degenerative disease of various different natures, it is frightening. And I believe that we have the capacity to hold our fright along with looking out to horizons for silver linings, for what are the things that are sitting right beside our fright. Not to leave the fright or bypass it or not experience those emotions, but to additionally search for where is the joy, where is the silliness. I've had a lot of moments with my mom that are, we end up in fits of giggles or that are funny stories, et cetera. And I think looking for where you have paradox, where you have complexity, where you have nuance, because if you don't, inside of the fright, all you've got is fright. And that's a difficult place to live from, and a difficult place to navigate this kind of long-haul journey that is Alzheimer's and dementia, if you've just got fright tucked in your pocket.
And maybe it's because we've evolved to this place where we want to just have, these just great things or quick fixes all the time. I just want this to be good all the time, and to realize that that's not realistic, for one thing. But so in the journey with your mother, to have those moments where there's some clarity, or just having those giggles and the recognition of, finding herself in this and being different than what you remembered her. I think that those are just such wonderful gifts.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. They're gifts. I don't think I could, as I said, like if I was just walking around with fright in my pocket and not being able to see those or capture those moments, that would be, a really difficult way to walk. And, there's a quote by Brandi Carlile, the musician, and I might get it a little bit wrong, but it's something along the lines of, mysticism is the most practical thing in the universe. The only thing about it is that it's found smack in the middle of grief. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been such the experience that if I'm willing to actually turn toward the grief, turn toward the loss and the sadness and sorrow that's within that for me, and kind of walk as slowly as I need to into it, when I get to the center point, there's usually more than just my sadness and sorrow. Mm-hmm. And so that's the gift. Those are the moments. And it takes a willingness to do that slow walk toward, which is not something we usually want to engage in. Usually it's like, well, I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to search for the fun thing. And so I think being able to summon the courage, the resilience, and, a lot of this comes from, for me, my first experiences with this was with athleticism. That's where I started as a young woman, in long-haul endurance. And I think that gave me the gift of developing a capacity to be able to sit with relative comfort inside of discomfort. And there's a lot of beauty in that place when you practice that. And so that's been a gift, certainly, that I've applied to the journey with my mom. I certainly apply it writing. I mean, you don't write something beautiful, first go. You have to sit with the mediocrity that comes out on the page, or the messiness, or the unknown, or the lack of clarity, and you have to be willing to companion it and hone it and look for where there might be some gold edges in it and move it in that direction. And I think that's a similar skill set that I use in a multitude of different arenas in my life.
And this is something that we learn through life. It's not a class that we can take and we know this. And that's why I feel in sharing the stories, in your being so open and honest in Everything Left to Remember, this is a way to help us become more aware and find how to use this and incorporate it in our own life.
You hit the nail on the head, because there isn't necessarily classes in this. It is developed through life experience. And we have art, we have music, we have movies, we have books, we have paintings, we have various different types of art forms that we say this to each other. We say, oh, I was moved by that. And so even if we don't have a language for it, we often have the experience of something moved me there. I was beside something, I was companioning something, in proximity to something, and it moved me. And I wonder if I could utilize that in my own life. And I really think that's what art does, including the art of writing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is wonderful. You're saying that, bringing our attention to the fact that that's where we do have so much of life education in the art around us. Yes,
and that all of this is learned not through classroom, but through felt sense, the felt sense of being moved. Then takes us into our kitchen. Just after we receive a phone call with some, disastrous news about a diagnosis, and we think, gosh, what will move me now? From this place of fright, right? And so I do think that this is what books do, and that's what I hope that the book does in the world, is to provide a sense of a person being both seen, perhaps in their own journey in a different way or a similar way, and also to have the experience of being moved, so that we can kind of anchor into the felt sense of what it is to carry through life that way.
And what I feel you do for us as well in this book, Everything Left to Remember, is drawing this parallel, which of course is life, is the parallel with nature, what we are doing to our planet, to nature, and what we can learn, and how we need to live in a harmony. We have to make those changes so we're not devastating everything around us to the extent we have.
Absolutely. When I think about who will hold us through this type of thing, who will teach us, especially as I was losing my mother. And I know that not all of the listeners will have maybe a positive relationship with their mothers, but it's a similar question of who will teach me, who can hold me now, And I think, when I personally was thinking about my own mother and the loss of her, I thought, well, there's no other mother bigger than my own, except that of nature. And how could I use nature? How could I go to nature and have that be an energy that can be a teacher about cycles, about sustainability, about endurance, about allowing some things to fall away. Sometimes you have to let things go and surrender and fall away, just like the leaves in the fall. So I think it's one of our great teachers, along with, in our society, different spiritual places that we have, and also, the elders that exist within our society in many ways, shapes, and forms. So I do thank you for bringing that up, because it's a very important message, and one that I'm really passionate about, is how can we consistently develop a relationship with nature that is not extractive, but in fact that is, kind of teacher-pupil. And certainly I think the book is an example of that.
Yes, and here you live in the same area where we all do here in this beautiful Puget Sound. And we know the beauty that exists here, that it just is, it feels incomparable. I'm sure other people in other areas of the world have their own sense of that beauty, but here we have so much to preserve, and we are just guided to do that.
Absolutely. I think the Pacific Northwest, specifically the Puget Sound, is originally, this is Coast Salish land, and this is a land of abundance. There is certainly was a time, perhaps still is, where fish swim up to you and berries fall off the trees, and there is such an abundance in this, an energy of it, an actual physical nourishment level of abundance. But also an energy of it. And I think that allows us to step into, when we have our needs met in that way by nature, it allows us to then step into the world of art because we've got time to then build out spiritual practices, creative practices, song, dance, art, etc. And so I think it's a really profound part of the world to engage in that.
Yes, we are definitely so blessed by being around all of this and just really have the opportunities for the ocean, for the mountains, and just, everything in between. If we go east of the mountains, we've got desert. So nature's just phenomenal here. And thinking of the mountains, you said how you had that in your youth, and you did some remarkable things with downhill skiing.
I did. That was really, my first, no pun intended. That was my maiden voyage. That was an archetypal maiden journey in my 20s and early 30s. I did a world record breaking ski journey. And that, again, going back to what I said earlier, was really, I feel like a moving meditation of sorts. It was finding that kind of comfort within discomfort, and the real kind of shift for me as a young woman from like a prowess over nature, like how could I conquer this mountain, to, oh my goodness, what is this mountain going to teach me today?
Again, going back to nature then, and how nature can be just this unparalleled teacher in our life. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I'm at a writing retreat right now. We're surrounded by nature, by the madrona trees, by Pen Cove, by, the mussels and oysters that are going to be fished right out of it. I mean, there's a lot for us to learn, and that again goes back to, do we have an ability to sit in the discomfort, which might include our own silence, around that, and practices around that. So, because, that is the language of nature, is that kind of silent, not silent soundscape.
Yes. And then we are going to transition your life. You just have done so much and are doing so much. And being at this writer's retreat, let's mention that there are a couple to note later on in the year that could be of interest and really be calling out to some of our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So the retreat that I'm at right now is called The Nature of Narrative, and it is for writers and non-writers alike, really to explore an embodied sense of writing and to use writing as a tool to get closer to the, inner unfolding of our world. And so that's going to be happening again on Whidbey Island in November of this coming year. And then there's an annual retreat that I hold on Bainbridge Island at one of my favorite places. Many of your listeners, I'm sure, will know Islandwood, which is a fabulous nonprofit organization on Bainbridge Island. And I run a retreat annually there called The Nature of Deep Remembrance. And I really mean that in the way of the ways in which we are kind of almost dismembered, or sometimes feel as though we've been taken apart by life. And what are the ways that we can remember ourselves and our totality, including joy, levity, laughter, fun, and profundity. And so that'll be happening this August, and that's an annual retreat, again, on Bainbridge Island in Washington.
And to find out more details, how to register, all of that sort of thing, we can do that through your website, right, Steph?
Absolutely, yeah, StephJagger.com. It's pretty easy to find me there. Those are under kind of retreat offerings. There's also a different calendar of events there. I work and partner with multiple other organizations to do various retreats, usually on the West Coast and Pacific Northwest, but that's all available on the website.
Which is great, as well as more information about this wonderful book, Everything Left to Remember, and an earlier book, Unbound, I think?
Yes, it is. Yep, Unbound is the name of the first book, yeah.
This book, Everything Left to Remember, is really such an incredible gift that we can give ourselves. It's such a healing journey we can be on, and a journey of remembrance, which again is so much a part of healing. And I think it's something that we can consider gifting ourselves. And The beauty again of this book, Everything Left to Remember, how there is this really like a weaving of life with nature, and they're just totally intricately involved with each other, and being able to recognize National Parks Week, because here, part of your journey with your mother did happen at Yellowstone, and I just loved what you shared about the experience, both from what it meant for the two of you together, but also to have the insights of how we treat our lands. And, only 1% of the people that visit the park go into the backland trails and explore that way. Everybody's just kind of poking along like little ants down the roadways in the park.
Yeah, I think that 1% of visitors in specifically in Yellowstone National Park that make it off of the boardwalks and into the backcountries is a beautiful metaphor for the question of how much of ourselves will we visit. How much of our mental landscape, our emotional body, our physical and spiritual bodies will we dare to walk through? And I think that's coming from the surface of ourselves to some deeper place. And that takes bravery and courage. We're taught that that's a wild and scary place. And what if it is the most kind of natural and actually safe and comfortable place if we just went there more often? So I think that's a beautiful metaphor for how we can be invited to live into our lives.
Yes. And it just wraps right in with our discussion, our conversation about love and all of how that is in our life. And, there's just so many beautiful parallels and metaphors in Everything Left to Remember. My Mother, Our Memories, and a Journey Through the Rocky Mountains. This is just such an incredible and important book, and I really highly recommend it for everyone. I think it's it's almost like its own kind of healing journey for each of us.
I think so, and that's my hope, is that anytime you put art out into the world, it ceases to become yours. I hope that readers are able to take it and, go on their own journey with it in whatever way, shape, and form that takes.
And along those lines, so we mentioned that there is the book event coming up at Elliott Bay Books, but also May is not that far away, Mother's Day. I think this can be just a beautiful gift for so many different people in our life, and really, extend that healing and that opportunity through a gift, through art, through a story.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it makes a great National Parks Week gift, a Mother's Day gift, and June is Brain and Alzheimer's Awareness Month. I think all of those are fitting for the themes in this book.
See how far it extends, right, Steph?
That's right.
Yes. It's so beautiful. And so are you. You are just this refreshing breath of life for us to really connect with and learn from. And I so appreciate that you take these journeys so much to heart and then want to express your experience so that we can all learn.
This is exactly what we've been talking about at this writing retreat all weekend, is do we have the courage to step into life in such a way that it drenches us, and then when it comes time to come in from the rain, from the wet, from the drenching, do we have the courage to kind of drop by drop let that turn into, our own medicine in many ways?
Isn't it beautiful? Again, your language, your sharing just really is like medicine for each of us.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I am just so grateful for you, and that we've had this opportunity this morning to share with others. It is truly such a gift.
No, and thank you for holding just a beautifully expansive container for this conversation. I appreciate that, and I'm grateful to you.
Well, you're so welcome. That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Steph Jagger and Sunday Morning Magazine with Sasha Vasilyuk. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the Listen tab, then Podcasts, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of meaningful connection within your family life. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.